Everyone at any point in life has been betrayed, and most of us will be betrayed over and over again. But the level at which we feel disappointed in betrayal is the level at which we opened up, we gave, or we decided to be vulnerable at. And what about when you just meet someone randomly? Feeling compelled to be vulnerable, to overshare, or to trust someone from the get-go is not typical. Usually you would take some time to build a connection, feel that you can trust someone, and over time, give your trust. I mean, it is said that trust is earned and not given. Today we're going to talk about protecting your emotions, and I want to divide this in two sections because this is such an important topic. So we're going to be talking about how to protect your emotions and tangible steps you can take. And we'll start by defining who is most likely to overtrust, overshare, and ultimately feel mistrust and disappointment in other people. So who tends to give their trust away so easily? And it's hard for me to give an answer in a very structured way, because at the end of the day, I'm talking to you. And you might be that person. And more often than not, it's most likely because you couldn't turn to anyone as a kid. You didn't have anyone to share with. Maybe you felt judgment whenever you needed help from the base, the grounding, the essence that is family, being grounded. Maybe you were met with anger, emotional reactions that were disproportionate from reality. And if that's the case, I'm sorry you had to go through that, because it leaves a mark. It makes you feel guilty for anything vulnerable, not good, not redeemable, and makes you more and more closed off. I mean, if you always are met with resistance, combativeness, judgment, and emotions that are disproportionate from reality when you need help, why would you keep being vulnerable and asking people for guidance or for support? And that must have made you so self-reliant to an extent that a lot of people won't ever be able to understand. Not only were you self-reliant, but you are the only one being there for yourself emotionally. And I think that this is the foundation to someone who needs to protect their emotions. Because at a certain point in the teen years, early adulthood, you meet people outside of people in school, outside of your family, and sometimes it just clicks. For once, you feel comfortable sharing, and it feels almost rebellious to be yourself, your imperfect self, and to share that with people, and share things that you've done that aren't so great, or sides of you that would not have been deemed acceptable by your family. However, this is where we need to protect ourselves. And the reason why specifically is because when you come from that background of being so closed off and learning that basically all your needs, all your mistakes, and all your faults, especially at an early age, a premature age, let's be clear, is not acceptable, If you're met with enough disappointment when you start being that rebellious side of you that shares, that express, and that wants to be seen, you'll revert. You'll revert not only because that's all that you've known before, but because there is a certain satisfaction to being proven right that just comes down to our human nature and how the brain functions. It's not your fault. It's not something that you should feel ashamed of, but it's a risk that ultimately is going to stop your growth. Because I believe you deserve to be heard. I believe you deserve to be seen, but in intimate settings with people that earned your trust. And the reason these people start very closed off to all the way super open is because in life, when we start from an extreme, the only thing we see is the opposite. We're so used to a drastic emotional baggage, a drastic way of living, that we feel more comfortable going to the other extreme. And we need to go through that imbalance, gauge both sides, to then figure out a healthy middle that truly works for us. And if you are in that stage of opening up and maybe feeling like you haven't been filtering people good enough, you've opened up to people that were not worthy of knowing who you are, you've extended and given yourself to people that, when you look back at it, were not giving back, I want to tell you that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And what you did was exactly that imbalance to ultimately find a healthy middle. And the reason I'm talking to you right now is because I urge you to not give up if you've faced situations, people, friends that ended up betraying you and misused your openness and vulnerability. I know it's tempting to go back. I know it's tempting to be closed off. We know that at the end of the day, you won't betray yourself. And you'll always be there for yourself because you've always had to be. But you don't need to keep that burden all on your shoulders anymore. So, now that we know who would be most likely to be in urgent need to protect their feelings, their emotions, their vulnerability, now, how do we do it? So, this might sound harsh, and I'm sorry if it does, but we need to be honest here. A lot of the time, when we are too vulnerable with someone right off the bat, it's most likely because we didn't care about them enough. We didn't take time to listen to them, to ask them questions, to understand why is it that they are interested in talking to us. And if you are at a first date, first time meeting someone, first time reconnecting with someone, sometimes we don't ask ourselves, is it the right setting to be vulnerable? If you're meeting someone for the first time on a date, is it the right setting to be vulnerable? What makes us think that they are trustworthy of knowing intimate details about us? Yeah, trauma dumping can feel amazing if you haven't opened up to anyone about your issues and your journey. And all of this is valid. However, are we sharing that to that person because we care about them and we trust them? Or simply because we desperately need to be heard at any cost? You must value what you've been through enough to understand that not everyone is worthy to hear about it. And while this could be counterintuitive, because at the end of the day, what can someone do to me if I have full trust in myself and I felt good sharing this? That's the point. You're going back to being self-reliant. You're going back to basically only trusting yourself. And there is no consideration to the other person. You know, if you ask someone about their value, about themselves, you can hear a lot about them by simply listening. And sometimes it goes beyond the words. You can hear that someone is all about themselves. You can hear that someone is emotionally distant. You can hear that someone puts all of their value in their work and will only talk about their work and ask you questions such as how much you make in a year, how much you make in a month, what are your goals about your business, and it's the first time you guys are meeting. Is this the person you want to be open to? Is this the person that deserves to hear you? Or is that the kind of person that's going to hear your story and be like, you're weird? Or maybe use it as entertainment and tell it to someone else. And this is why you must filter by being observant, listening a whole lot, and keeping in mind that your trust is earned, it's not given. The same applies to social media. You may have 40,000 followers, but who are they? Why are they here? Why are they listening to you? And are they the best people suited to listen to all of these deep emotions and deep trauma and deep issues that you've been having? Will they weaponize it against you in the future? Will they make fun of you for saying these things? And the reality is, will you be able to handle it? Will that taint your judgment, not only towards other people, but towards yourself? Will you see your own story, your own trauma as less than? And ultimately, will you close yourself even more to others after the fact? And the reason I'm looking at you in the eyes and I'm telling you these things is because this is something I wish someone would have told me sooner. And I hope that you have a space in your heart to receive that, there's nothing wrong with you. We want to be heard. We want to communicate. And you're most likely a super deep person with an amazing self-awareness and an amazing self-reflection, introspection level. But not everyone has that. And if you keep opening up to the wrong people without filtering first, you will remain disappointed, judged, and made to feel less than, which, if we go back to what we said, that's what got you closed off in the first place. And the reason this is important is because you are in a place in your journey where right now you need to learn how to be more open. You need to learn how to be more open first before being vulnerable. And I will not allow you to go back into your old patterns of misjudging everyone as bad people simply because you did not protect yourself enough and you decided to not look at who's in front of you, who's hearing me, and you just went for it. And you knew ultimately that it would hurt you. I salute you for trying to change, for going out there and trying something new. There's so much power in you. And finally, it is rare to find people of value, people that are respectful, people that are selfless, people that are here for you. And this is what you must start doing as well, listening to people, filtering, observing, so that when you open up, you get vulnerable. You cross the bridge between a superficial relationship to a personal relationship. You understand why you're building that bridge and if the person is worth building that bridge. And to conclude, of course, we can always be wrong. We can always have a bad judgment, be fooled, and everyone will continue to be disappointed. But if you protect yourself according to what you know you need in terms of emotional protection, the betrayals won't be as bad, and they won't happen at a point where you've given all of yourself and you feel like there's no way to come back from it. Now take a deep breath and appreciate where you're at, because you are exactly where you are supposed to be. And I trust that you will continue to improve.